Hello, I'm Ray, teacher and tutor, and today I'd like to give you a quick run through on SATs, what they are, when they are, etc. Let's start off with what does SAT actually mean? Well, SAT stands for Standardized Assessment Tests, or test, and then the little s on the end. And these are taken by every child in Key Stage 2, Year 6. They're usually conducted around the second week of May, and they are kept to a very strict timetable which is given by the government. What are the SATs? The SATs are split into maths and English, and on the English side we have a standalone reading paper, and then we have in a separate section we have a spelling paper and a spelling, punctuation and grammar paper. And on the maths side it is split into 3 papers, one arithmetic, one reasoning and another reasoning. Now to go through the marks, we have 50 for the reading, and typically, though not always, so don't quote me on this, it's roughly around 30 raw marks to get a scaled score of 100, which is a pass. Then in the SPAG paper, you have 20 for the spelling and you have 50 for the punctuation and grammar. They're combined together to give you a score out of 70. And you need approximately 36, 38 to pass that, which will give you a scaled score of 100. And then on the math side, you have arithmetic, which is out of 40, and then you have 2 reasonings, which are 35 marks apiece, giving you a final score of 110. Now, typically, and again, this tends to change quite a bit over the years, you need around 60 marks to pass this, which will give you a scaled score of 100. A scaled score of 100, like I've said in all of them, is what we consider the pass mark. Now, the reason we use a scaled score rather than a raw score is because scale scores can apparently be used to compare against previous years to see how well. And the reason I say apparently is because they are graded on something called a bell curve. So a bell curve goes up and down, and then you have this bit in the middle, which will be where the majority of children fit in, and roughly 16% will be towards the higher end and 16% will be towards the working towards end, and then you'll have 2 outliers on either side. They'll be almost like getting 0 or 80 scaled score, and some there are getting 120, which is the best scaled score you can get, and we call this greater depth. So when will you find out about these results? Well, it depends from school to school. Usually sometime in July, the school will find out. It's a very exciting morning. You go in, you get access to the government gateway where all the results are put on a screen. And then this is where the school and class teachers can have a look over them. And if there are any discrepancies, for example, perhaps we have a child who typically does very well in tests, in a maths test has scored very poorly, we may ask for that paper to be regraded or looked at. The school can pay to download it and have another look, just to ensure that the child is being given a very fair chance. And then typically the school will then send out these results to parents, sometimes within like a week or so. On other occasions, it's at the end of the year with their final report. But all schools have to publish it on their website unless the government has said otherwise. Now, as for writing and science, these are very different. In the past, many years ago, we used to have a writing test and a science test, but now they have taken those away. These are graded by teacher judgment, or teacher assessment as we call it. This data still goes to the government, but it's not a formalized test. Occasionally there's sampling for science, but there's not an awful lot of that. And as for writing, occasionally, or some more often than not, a school will be selected for writing moderation. So that means essentially there are trained moderators who are very astute in what it takes for a child to be age-related or greater depth or working towards in writing, and they will come in and make sure that the school's teachers and their judgment are correct before the information is then given out to parents and the government. But hopefully you found some very helpful information there, and I've answered some unasked questions perhaps. But if you're worried about how your child will perform in SATs and whether it will determine their school or their place in school, I wouldn't worry too much. Okay, no one's going to get hurt. No one's future is going to be jeopardized. It's obviously really good to do your best in SAT, but if your child does struggle with exams, it's not the end of the world. And if your child is having trouble with the Key Stage 2 curriculum, I do have a Pro Tutor in School, which is a selection of online lessons. It's still being built up, but there's still a lot for you to go through, such as your reading skills, your place value, your number, how to calculate fractions on there. There is enough to get you going. So if you want to have a look at that, I'll provide the link below, or you can have a look at my bio. But anyway, I wish you the best of luck. Take care.